Today's story is Andy Shane here at last. Let's go. One, four-leaf clovers. Andy Shane and Lucky Duck were sprawled in the grass in the shade of the high school bleachers. Andy was looking for a lucky four-leaf clover. With luck, he thought, he was sure to get the two things he really wanted. Every now and then he stopped searching and looked up at the high school band. They were learning to march. "Listen to the drum," shouted the band leader. "It will tell you what to do." Boom! Lift one foot. Boom! Lift the other foot. Match your feet to the drum beat. "Hello!" someone called. Lucky Duck jumped out in record speed. It was Dollars Starbuckle. Andy knew that Dollars would show up sooner or later. She'd memorized all his favorite places. "Did you find one?" she asked. "Nope, not yet," said Andy. "What do you need luck for?" asked Dollars. "To win the bike contest," said Andy. "Oh no," said Dollars. She started looking for her long four-leaf clover. "I told you I am going to win the contest. You can have a second prize." Now Dollars knew one thing that he wanted, but she didn't know the second thing. The things Andy wanted even more than winning the bike contest. What Andy Shane really wanted was to be a hero, ready and willing. That evening, Granny Webb and Andy hiked to Swallow's Hollow. It was one of their favorite places in town. Together they sat on the edge of the small cliff and watched the swallows dip and swoop in and out of their nest. "You were smart to bring a backpack, Andy," said Granny Webb. "You never know what you will need when you explore." Andy just smiled. He didn't tell Granny that this wasn't an ordinary backpack. This was his hero backpack. "There are some things you can plan," said Andy. He had a plan for winning the bike contest. He was going to turn his bike into one of these awesome birds. The front of his bike would be a swallow, big, and in the back there would be a feather's tail. He just had to figure out how to make wings that could plop in the middle. That was the part that would surely impress the judge. But there were lots of things you couldn't plan. You couldn't plan to be a hero. You just had to be ready. While Granny Webb scooted a little lower on the cliff to view the swallows through her binoculars, Andy unzipped his hero backpack and took a look at the things he'd collected. He had kept in for luring frightened kittens out of trees, a map for helping lost children find their homes, a loop to toss in case someone fell into the river, a flashlight in case someone fell down a hole, a camera for taking pictures of the delvers or people who littered, band-aid for anyone who needed one. Andy had everything he needed to be a hero. Now he simply needed to be in the right place at the right time. "Egg!" called Granny Webb from below. "What?" cried Andy. "I slipped on a rock." "Hold on!" he shouted. "I'm coming!" Andy Shan pulled his rope from his backpack and tried to straighten it out. But before he could get the rope untwisted, Granny popped back up to where he was standing. "I forgot how slippery those rocks can be," he said, brushing herself off. "But I was going to rescue you," said Andy. "Next time," said Granny Webb. Andy and Granny collected swallow feathers that had fallen to the ground, and then they headed home. On the way, they passed Dolores Starbuckle's house. She was in the driveway with her newly polished bike. Blue, yellow, and white streamers flowed from the handlebars and in and out of the spokes of her wheels. The basket was covered in paper daisies, and inside was a tiny bike helmet that was also covered in daisies. "You can't wear this," said Andy, picking up the helmet. It's way too small." "That's for Mira," said Doris. Mira was Dora's cat. "She's going to ride in the front of my bicycle built for two." "What a clever idea," said Granny Webb. "Do you think she will stay in the basket?" Andy thought of Mira jumping from the bike and scurrying to the roof and the Mary Muffin Bakery on Main Street. Andy would race up the stairs, throw open the second-story window, and hurl Mira to him with a catnip. Everyone would cheer as the cat with the flowered bike helmet crawled into his arm. Andy reached down to pet Mira, who was rubbishing up against Granny's legs. Mira hissed at Andy and reached out to scratch him. Ack! Rescuing Mira would not be the way to become a hero after all. Andy still didn't know how he would become a hero, but what he did know was this. If he didn't get working on his bike mighty quick, Dollars would win the contest for sure. 3. Bedrock. The next day, Andy rode his bike to April's craft store to pick up supplies. He picked out brown paint, yellow paint, and glue. On the way home, he passed the high school. The band was in the parking lot, practicing for the parade. A boy was pounding on the big bass drum with a stick that looked like a giant lollipop. The other band members were quickly marching in place. Their feet were tapping with the boom, boom, boom. They were ready. Andy jeeped home so that his bike would be ready too. Granny helped Andy cut a tail out of cardboard, paint the background brown, and then glue some feathers on. Tell me about the rest of the swallow, she said. I want long swallow wings in the middle, wings that can flap up and down. But I don't know how to attach them to my bike, said Andy. Maybe you should draw a picture, said Granny Webb. Just as Andy and Granny were finishing up, Lucky Duck came into the barn to investigate. He was covered in glass and twigs. Where have you been? Asked Andy. Lucky just snipped the feathers. They are swallow feather, said Andy. Lucky liked feather. Before Andy or Granny could grab his collar, he lowered on the feather tail. No luck, yelled Andy. Lucky jumped up and ran from the barn. Andy knew better than to chase him. There was nothing Lucky Duck loved more than a game of tag. So Andy sat down on the steps and waited and waited. Hello! No, thought Andy. This was not a good time to hear how wonderful Dollar's Starbuckle's bike looked. Lucky came bounding over to say hello. He's covered in feathers, said Dollars, and brown paint. I know, said Andy. He tried to pull a feather off, but it was stuck to his fur. Lucky needed a bath. Granny held Lucky in the bubbly water. Dollars and Andy washed his fur. The minute Granny let go of Lucky to get a tour, he leaped from the top. He shook and spun, jumped and roared. Then he flew out the door and down the stairs. I will get the feather, said Dollars, and she gathered all she could from the mucky water and took them outside to dry in the sun. Andy stayed and mopped the water up off the floor, the counter, and the walls. He was scrubbing the dirt and paint out of the top when Granny walked in again. "Why, Andy Shane," she said, looking around at the shiny bathroom. "You're my hero." "Great," said Andy. When it came to being a hero, this was not what he had in mind for saving the day. He didn't think it could happen. But on the day of the parade, Andy Shane was ready. On the back of his bike was a long swallowtail. The rest of his bike was wrapped in white stripes of cloth to look like the belly of a swallow. Andy sat on his bike. Granny helped him slide wings with paper feathers onto his arms. Then she helped him put on his helmet, which had been covered in paper machi to look like the head of a swallow, complete with beak. Andy and his bike made an impressible bird. Andy saw Dorals where the bike were lining up for the parade. "Don't come over here," yelled Dorals. "I don't want you scare Mira." That was fine with him. He'd already had dog trouble. He didn't need cat trouble too. And realized that he had forgotten his hero backpack. He missed it. The band started playing, and the parade began moving out of the parking lot and into the street. First then were the important people in town, leading in convertibles. Next came the Brownies, the Girl Scouts, the Cub Scouts, and the Boy Scouts. The high school band followed the scout. The flute came first. Then came the clarinets and the saxophones. Next were the trumpets and finally the drum. It was time for the bicycle to follow. As Andy roared into the street, he took one hand off the handlebars and waved his arms up and down. He wanted to look like a swallow in flight. "Hey, look at that owl!" a little girl shouted. "An owl?" said Andy. "I look like an owl?" But this was the Home Sweet Home parade, and everyone in town loved the bird and swallow wholly. He wondered if he should have made a sign telling people what he was. Suddenly the parade stopped, the music stopped, where even the boom 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 of the drum couldn't be heard. Folks continued to point and yell. Andy knew that they aren't all pointing at him. They were pointing out the bike that looked like a school bus. The bike that looked like a loose brush, and Doral's bicycle built for two. So far, Mira was still in the basket, and she seemed to like the attention. But not Andy, even behind his berth. Big Dove felt shy. He put his head down. That's when Andy saw something on the road, something that looked like a giant lollipop. "Oh no!" He leaned over on his bike to scoop it up, but his tires slid out from under him. Crash! Andy and his bike landed on the ground. Several grown-ups asked Andy if he was okay and started to step in the street to help him. But Andy jumped back onto his bike and steamed ahead. He knew what he needed to do. He rode in front of the bike that looked like a school bus. He rode in front of the bike that looked like a loose bush. He rode in front of Doris, Starbuckle, and Mira. "Hey, Andy Shan!" shouted Doris. "I am leading the bike parade." But Andy didn't stop. He could see the band up ahead, and they were confused. They didn't know if they should march forward or stay in place. They didn't know if they should play their instrument or rest. Where was the boom, boom, boom? They were looking backward. The bass drum wasn't beating. Andy rode up to the bass drum, playing, and held out the drumsticks. The bass drum player leaned over the Shane drum players. Andy leaned over the snare drum player too. His bike wobbled, but it didn't fall. The pass was made. The bass drummer started pounding, and the band played their next turn. The crowd cheered. When the parade ended, Andy didn't line up with the other bikes for the judging of the contest. His costume had been crushed when he fell over, but he didn't mind. He had a good feeling about the day just the same. He gave Doris a good luck wave as he went off to find Granny Webb. He didn't see Mira, but she may have been sleeping in the basket. The next morning, just as Andy had cleaned all the white strips of cloth off his bike, Granny came out to show him something special. It was the front page of the newspaper. Town news. Hometown hero Andy Shane. He had done it. Andy Shane was a hero at last. Thank you for the watching. Bye bye.